And we are now live.
This is Senate Appropriations Committee, and we're taking our testimony continues on the FY 2022 budget proposal. And we have with us this afternoon, Secretary Quinn and Kate Slocum. We apologize for keeping you waiting. Dr. Levine was giving all the Senate an update on the COVID vaccination situation. So it delayed our start time. So appreciate your patience. Anyone else with you today, Secretary? Did I call you Commissioner? I don't know. Whatever you are, whatever your title, welcome.
Today it's Secretary. Thank you.
All right. So just the two?
Just the two of us.
Okay.
Yep.
So as you probably know from coming into this committee on numerous occasions, we really want to focus on the high points of the budget, the initiatives, things that maybe in the governor's budget that are either that stand out. Much of any department or agency budget has a lot of common themes, whether that's, your charge for fee for space, your pay act, et cetera, personnel costs, but more give us kind of the highlights. Also, I know that there's a very significant proposed allocation of available general fund to go into an IT fund.
Yep.
So those are the kinds of presentations. You may have your highlight page. So I'm going to let you take it from there. But as you know, we do not want to go through ups and downs line by line for, $61, to be perfectly honest. So do you have a document you want to share?
Yes, I can put it on the screen, and you should all have it linked on your website if you want to follow along separately, or you can follow along on the screen. But I'm glad to hear you say that, Senator Kitchell. The ups and downs page usually ends up just being confusing, and in a level budget year, it would be a pretty boring conversation. So let me get started.
Okay, thank you.
And this should go fairly quickly. I always like to start a little bit about talking about the agency and what we've done over the past year. And really, being a new agency in 2017, I think we've made a pretty good stamp on state government already. This year, we've identified $7.459 million in savings and cost avoidance that were validated by the other agencies. So this is doing things like saving money on contracts, buying in bulk in areas that we know that, we're going to use it, such as laptops, computers, all of those types of things. And overall, since 2017, we've documented over $17 million in avoidance and savings. So not a bad start to a new agency. The other area that you'll see is that we've reduced the CIT deficit, which has been around longer than I've been in state government. So it's been around for over 20 years. CIT had it, DII had it, and we've put together a plan with Adam Gresham and Finance and Management and the rest of the administration to really wipe out the CIT debt. And we reduced it by $5.4 million this year. And so I think we're down to about approximately $150,000 to $175,000 in debt, and that's it now.
That's all?
That's all. So we've come a long ways in a short time as far as reducing that number on the CAFR. So I think that's another positive thing that we've been able to do. Our budget this year is our budget request.
Gee, maybe we should just pay it off with some of our one-time general fund.
we could, but I think we'll make it up this year either way. I think that we'll be able to reduce it further. The request for this year is $83,916,732. The only ups in our budget are bespoke charges, and those bespoke charges are things that are unique to one agency or specific spending for one agency or another. So nothing to our budget. It's all in what other agencies are going to spend. So, whether it's specific software or itemized things that, they may need for themselves. So that's the only up in our budget. So those, as you know, would be reflected in their budgets as well. The number of overall positions hasn't changed. One of the successes that we like to talk about is our chosen platforms. And one of the ones that you may have heard of is Salesforce. We've been using Salesforce all across state government. It has given us a rapid way to stand up applications and to be able to respond to the pandemic, and offers us long-term data sharing capabilities across our enterprise and to reduce the number of overall systems that we need.
So did we use some of our CRF money that we gave to you for this software?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
In both implementation for building applications and pushing out grant money, PUA, all of those types of things were built on Salesforce. One of the other things that we like to talk about within our budget is, and it comes up often, is everyone hears about the IT failures, but never about the successes, right? Or we don't think about them in the same way. So quite often I hear, well, government isn't very good at IT. Well, we had 42 successful projects this year in a number of different areas. We grew our Salesforce platform from 70 users internally to over 500, and over 89,000 Vermonters use Salesforce to get benefits and to communicate with different agencies and departments.
So could I ask you, Jen, did we have that Salesforce capability, or is that something we brought in with CRF and just expanded what was already there? This was a new application?
We had it before. We had approximately 5 applications running in a couple different agencies, and the unique part about it was the capability to stand things up very quickly, rather than it taking months or years. Our average time to stand up an application was 11 days.
I know it's pretty incredible when you think about the millions and millions of dollars that went out through the various programs. So I guess it proved itself.
Yeah. To that point, one of these bullet points down below is, through the CRF grants project, which was all done on Salesforce, we awarded over 386 millions in relief to Vermonters. And I don't know how we would have done that and been able to produce a reliable audit trail of that money without this technology. We would have had some audit problems in the end trying to reconcile all of those numbers. So I think, again, we're headed in the right direction and we're making good progress. This is our dashboard that we present every year. This gives you a snapshot of our different key performance indicators and things that we measure ourselves upon. And I'll point more towards the middle of the screen where it says customer satisfaction. That grade has risen from, I believe it was a B- last year. So even during a pandemic, that customer satisfaction indicator has gone up. And the way we measure that is not only through our help desk system and surveys, but we survey our business users on the side or in a separate process, asking them for specific feedback in different areas that we offer services. And then we put it through a formula and it spits out a grade. So, we're able to drill down into each agency and see which areas we're getting maybe a D in or a C in or an A in, and, adjust as we go along to make sure that we're giving our customers the service that they need.
What about project management? Go to the other one.
Sure.
Right now we have 69 projects in progress throughout state government. They're about 75% are on target. Yep. On target, is that both time and money?
That's the iron triangle. So scope, schedule, and cost, all of those are on target if it's in that 74.7% range. Quite often the one that slips is schedule with state government. Quite frankly, we always over resource our people, and the schedule slips quite often. So that's usually where it is. And sometimes it's the scope of the project expands, but we have a much better eye on the projects now than we have in the past. The 69 projects represents the number of projects over $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, we have a lot going on.
Question. I can't see.
I did have a question, but I answered it myself.
Did you? I think I've switched my camera.
I wasn't able to find something, but I located it.
All right. Well,
Philip is so smart.
And so
am I
I'll
looking at
move on
my
if there's-
bookcase? Can somebody tell me, have I switched my camera so I'm looking at my books, or me?
Yes. No, books.
Oh, all right.
There you
Now-
go.
There we go.
Now
Thank
we
you.
can see you.
Well, I can't tell. All I've got is that little chart down in the right, and I have the full screen of the secretary. So I apologize.
Push your
And I-
box up on the side.
Yeah, well, thank you, Senator Starr. Questions for the secretary so far? Do you want to talk about cybersecurity here, or is that part later on?
We will touch on it later on. I have a few things to share. I wanted to get through a couple more the budget slides and
All
really
right.
open it up to your questions, because I know there's been a lot going on across state government, and I'm sure all of you have questions from a number of different agencies. So as I said in our request for 22, it's really flat. As far as what ADS is asking for, the bespoke costs are up about $2.6 million, and those are in other agencies. We're just capturing them. So the legislature and the administration have an understanding of what we're spending on IT this year.
Could I just make sure I understand what you mean by bespoke?
Yep.
So in other words, it's not part of your budget, but it's part of your bailiwick, your oversight.
It's a service or commodity that we purchase for another agency and bill directly back those charges.
Okay, but you retain authority and control over that?
In almost all cases, yes.
Okay. So it's just an accounting decision that it doesn't appear on your budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, you'd have double counting. That's
Yeah.
or you'd have to unduplicate it if you had it both to the department getting that service or that piece of equipment, and it showed in the agency's budget as well. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably why we do have that double counting with the Medicaid waiver with global commitment, but try to avoid it otherwise. I've got a wonderful shot of Senator Starr, full screen. So we'll keep going with the secretary, because I want him to get through his budget, and then we can open it up for questions.
Sure.
I
So
can help you out with that. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you. I love this committee. At least we've got a sense of humor. Okay, we'll move on.
So this is our allocation since 2014 through now. The allocation is the enterprise type items that we offer, such as network services, help desk support, our business office, and all of those costs put together are equaled up and divided by the number of state employees, and that's really what makes up the ADS allocation. So as you can see, for the past couple of years, it's been flat. And we've been able to do that in large part because we've been able to not only use our buying power, but consolidate some of our equipment and storage devices and move things in a way that, you know, departments individually couldn't have done. And so we've been able to keep some of those costs down and really keep them flat across the agencies for this number. Now, when other agencies come into you and they tell you that their ADS costs are through the roof, those are consumption costs. And so those are things where, you know, I'll use an example of one secretary telling me, you know, how great it was. They'd gotten rid of all of their filing cabinets. They had scanned everything and put it online, which is great because I think, you know, it gives us an opportunity to have backups and disaster recovery and remote work. But he couldn't figure out why his ADS charges were going up. And that's because he's taking up that much storage on our network. And so when they come in and say, you know, our ADS costs have gone way up, well, that's consumption based and it's based on the amount that they use. We're not in the business of making money, unfortunately, because that would be a revenue source for our modernization fund that I'm going to talk about. But that's really what they're talking about when they come in and say that, you know, their ADS costs are up, if they come in and say that.
Yeah, same is true for B for space. You want more space or whatever, it's going to get passed on. Okay.
Right. I'm going to have Kate quickly go through the budget development form just at high level, and then we'll move on.
Good afternoon, Kate Slocum, Chief Financial Officer for the Agency of Digital Services. So this is a slide that you all have probably seen from any office that's come in and testified in front of you. It basically shows the gyrations of our budget. As the Secretary has explained, the major pressures in our budget are around the demand-driven charges. But when you pull back the curtain a little bit, there's a little bit more detail that I think the committee would appreciate understanding. So like every other agency or department, there's always salary adjustments that are necessary. We were able to maintain these pressures to a very minimal level. And part of that is due to our aggressive approach to resourcing new staff that come on board. As staff retire or leave their positions, we actually do a very thorough review of those job specifications and work duties, and we look to downgrade the position appropriately where necessary, to maybe bring in a lower level green IT professional into state government. And by doing that, we've been able to really kind of hamper down our salary pressures year after year. We did see some changes in space. So this last year, prior to the pandemic, there was a move underway. The ADS had been in communication talkings with BGS around looking to leave state-owned space for less expensive lease space. And you might say, wow, that doesn't make any sense. And I get that, but it's out there. We actually have taken, in the Montpelier complex, we've taken all of our centralized IT support and moved them out of the state-owned buildings like 133 and 109, for example, and pulled them under one roof at the National Life campus in a very low square foot building, the Dewey building. So you'll see that there was an increase in lease space because we are occupying more lease space than we ever have before. But then there was an associated and actually greater amount of a decrease in fee for space for us as a result of that move. That move happened over the summer, and although staff are all working remote in our agency, we still do have those costs in our budget.
So you're going to have to help us with what's an EPMO tool.
Sure. So the EPM, that's the Enterprise Project Management Office tool. So it's a project management tool that's used by all the project managers in the IT projects.
Oh, well, it's only 3,200, so I probably don't want to spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, the only nice thing about that is that we moved to a Salesforce application. So we're kind of drinking our own Kool-Aid on that one. And it's so far been a very successful adventure. We had to, because of the remote workforce, we had to increase our e-signature tool to accommodate those working from home. And then the last two lines, which are the major lines, are around the demand-driven costs. So the increase in planned demand bespoke is those professional services or specialized software or hardware that's necessary from the departments. And then also within the SLA are purchases of licenses like Salesforce and OnBase, which are totally driven by the needs of the agencies and departments.
Okay, that gets you to 83, almost 84 million.
Madam
Yep.
Chair,
Yes.
just wondering if the major increase is bespoke, would it be possible to get a list of those projects just for my reference so that I know to look in the other agencies' budgets? Well, actually, it's represented here, but just so I know where the actual software is, that makes sense?
We can accommodate that, Senator.
Great, thank you.
I think probably the other thing, and I don't know to what extent the House technology or the oversight, but if you have over 60 projects in the works, over 500,000, I would think, is there a report for each of those projects, the cost? It seems like that was something that didn't exist until a number of years ago. So to me, that can be very helpful in terms of what's under development, what is the cost, what is the time frame, so we hear some of the major ones. Obviously, the court is one major IT project. Some of the DMV going on, integrated eligibility in DCF is another. I don't know whether you count the childcare. Building Bright Futures project, but those are the kinds of things that I think if anybody wants to really look at what's underway and in what area, that would be a good place to look.
And we have all that information on our website under our annual plan.
Yeah, okay.
That list. And if there's something there, if you're looking and don't find something, I'm pretty sure we have it, especially if it's project related. As far as costs. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.
So my question to you is, out of those projects underway, are there some that you perceive as really experiencing serious difficulty or raising concerns around successful implementation?
Yeah, there are. And it's, this happens from time to time where we see troubles. I think the difference is where the leadership team, whether it be an education project or a ACCD project, we're pretty coordinated on communication on how to go about fixing it. Probably one of the ones that I'm watching the closest is a finance system at the Department of Education or the Agency of Education and the troubles that they're having out in the districts. And there's a number of things going on with that project. It's not.
Oh, I know that common chart of accounts. It's going to dog us.
Yes.
As a former Senator Ash said, we fought World War I, we have fought the Korean War, we have fought Vietnam in less time than we have got that common chart of account. And now I understand there's real concern about the functionality of the software that was selected. So we're quite familiar with that one.
Yeah. So there's definitely things like that we're trying to work through. That's the one that comes front and center to me and probably to all of you, just knowing that it affects a lot of your districts and that you probably hear complaints. I don't think that all of the issues are technology related. Some of them are change management related and resistance to change. And I think we have a long documented tracking mechanism of those things. But there are some technology challenges that they're having around, what they require compared to what was bought and what was originally documented for what was needed and what we didn't get and what we found out afterwards, we as a state. So, that's probably the one that concerns me the most. There's a couple others that are slipping either in schedule or have asked for additional functionality, which asks for more money that they don't have. So there's some little things like that, but nothing that we can't overcome or nothing that that I can think of off the top of my head that I would, be worried about failing at this point.
Okay. We'll keep going then
que-
through your slide. Sorry.
Real quick question on the AOE software. 2 years ago, when I was chairing that committee, I believe I remember right that we pushed out their implementation.
Oh, we've
date.
done it numerous times, Senator Bruce.
Yeah, but I'm thinking specifically of, they were at a phase in their project where they had a pilot that was underway, and the pilot had produced some sketchy results. Actually, I think there were 5 districts that were using it, and we didn't want them to push it out beyond that pilot stage. Did they ever do that, or is that where it stands now?
I
with
think
those-
maybe we better ask AOE when they come in.
Okay,
Because
enough.
also we've had joint fiscal, we have an IT person who helps us, and he's been trying to help define the problem and how much of it is, whether it's as a result of change requests, need for the support for implementation versus areas where in fact the software is not doing what it needs to do to support the work. So it's probably a combination of all of them, but I think we can have the AOE people in to speak to that. And we can also have our IT person come in as well if you want.
Okay.
And
I think it would be good to have them both in, because it's key. If we don't have all the districts keeping track of the same material on the same computers, we're never going to get a fair handle or fair answer to our cost of spending.
Well,
they
that's
all-
the problem, is having consistent, uniform data around the state, because each district had their own. But this project is so old, it was initiated by Martha Heath. Just to
I
give you
forgot,
some
who is
perspective.
that?
Yeah, so,
And I can tell you that we've shared quite a bit of documentation with your consultant, Dan Smith, the JFO IT person. And, I know that Secretary French would be happy to come in and discuss the project with you, and that he's been keeping a close eye on it as well. And we've spoken about, what's the right next step. I also know that there's a bill in the legislature to halt the process and put it on pause for a little while. So there's a number of things going on there.
I think that bill got introduced by someone who wasn't aware of the history and the involvement that was already going on.
Okay.
But I don't know. The House will have to make their own decision on that. But it seemed like that to legislate that, when in fact we had dealt with it through extensions or other fairly easily through the budget process. It seemed like maybe separate legislation wasn't really needed, but we'll see what the House does with it.
Right. So here on the next slide, you can see by fund how much money we're getting in each one of these things. As you can see, the Agency of Digital Services gets very little general fund at all. The general fund goes to support the Center for Geographic Information, our mapping unit that really supports an enterprise of different mapping softwares, things that you use online. And it's really a a valuable service to the state of Vermont. If you've used any maps, whether it be for permitting or anything like that, VCGI was involved. Now the fun part of our presentation is to talk about the technology fund that the governor proposed in his budget. So really what we're looking for here is a special fund that allows us to start to build revenues in it to modernize some of our applications. The governor proposed seeding it with $53 million of one-time money. And the rationale behind that, rather than putting the money in individual buckets, was this is really a one-time investment that will pay long-term dividends. When we look at these technologies and look at what our future holds and the amount of technology that we use in state government, by letting ADS start to manage that fund and modernize and prioritize what needs to be done, it gives us an opportunity to really mature our organization being the state of Vermont, and get a handle on some of this backdated technology. We have 4 projects on the list that were identified in the appropriation bill with software of 40 years that are 40 years old, where we don't have people to be able to make changes and develop in that language anymore. Most of the people have retired, and the people that haven't.
So
Yep.
what are the 4? Would you just, so we don't have to crosswalk, the 4 are DMV's got a very old system. COBOL is still
Yep.
That probably is one.
It's the DMV system.
Uh-huh.
It's the VDOL FARS system. It's the VDOL unemployment insurance system, and it's the AHS integrated eligibility system.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so what we're looking for, it is that fund to be able to start to manage some of these projects in a new way. And the way I envision the fund working is a lot like the capital bill or the transportation bill, where the
But your problem is you haven't got a source of ongoing revenue.
We're working on it.
Oh.
We're very close to bringing a list of options to the governor next week, and we hope to have it to the legislature very shortly after. But we've been working very hard every day to identify resources. So this isn't a one-time seed money and then not having a way to fund it after that. So we hope to be able to bring something to you very, very shortly, as far as what those revenues would be going forward, to be able to continue to fill the coffers of this modernization fund, so we can pick projects every year and start to pick off some of these old technologies and some of these things that we never seem to have the money for. When we've had these discussions about some of these systems in the past, the price tag is enough to, make any of us sit back and say, well, we don't have the money for that. And unfortunately it gets pushed aside because $1 million or $2 million doesn't necessarily do anything for some of these projects. Some of the price tags on these things are $45 and $50 million over 3 or 4 years for the initial investment. And then the operation cost goes down dramatically. But to fund these things in the beginning, we got to have a way to seed those funds. And so I'm hoping to give you more information on that very shortly. Listed out in that $53 million were a list of projects, and I just wanted to go ahead and share that list with you so you have an understanding of what it is that the first 53 million would go towards. It's a list of projects that of different age technologies, but each one represents a pretty significant value to state government. ADS was able to go through and speak with all of the different agencies and get a prioritized list of IT things or IT applications and priorities, and compile that list and bring it to the governor and say, here's the list of needs across our technology portfolio. Here are the things that have funding. Here are the things that don't have funding. Here are the top things on their list that don't have funding. And from there, we whittled it down, and the governor chose these as his 12 top priorities for IT for this coming fiscal year to start on. I don't know if any of you have questions on this. I don't want to move off the page if you.
No, I think this would take a lot longer than what we want to do for our overview right now.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question, Madam Chair,
Yes.
about this says it would be managed similarly to the T fund. How does that work in terms of money is put into it, and then who has the authority to take it out?
We do. We would appropriate.
But is that the same here? Would this fund need to be appropriated?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, once it's in the fund, because it says it would be managed by the Agency of Digital Services. Is it
The project may be even the capital bill goes through the legislative process and the plan is approved, and it varies from year to year. So what gets included. So it would be reviewed and go through the appropriations process. This is creating the fund and kind of putting a fence around the money. These are the projects that, and I would assume some of these are multi-year, like human capital. So that's how it would work. Is the money would have to be appropriated out of the fund.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So are you, since you're talking about creating the fund and you're going to take something to the governor, is it a straight bill off to all the other departments, or how would you adjust it to fill the fund?
So we're proposing to the governor next week a list of potential revenue sources that would put money into this fund year after year. And then I envision it working like the capital bill, where we would meet with the legislature and put forward a list of projects that we would like to do based on, a prioritization process. And like everything else, that we do, it would go through a back and forth and
so I get all of that. So is this a bill off to the departments like fee for space?
No.
So how where would the capital come from?
So as I just mentioned, the list of revenue sources has not been given to the governor yet, and I hope to have that to you the week after next.
What they're working with in the governor's initiatives with our one-time money is to transfer out of that general fund, which is about 212 million, 53 million to go into this new fund. And these are the proposed priorities for the use of those dollars. So we've got one-time money to seed it, but the big question is what the secretary is saying, and that is, well, we could easily spend all 53 million right now. I don't need a special fund. But the question then becomes one of, once you've spent the money, then it's a one-off unless you can get an ongoing revenue source to keep the fund capitalized.
Well, and so basically you're going to have to bill off to departments.
And they can't bill off unless the money's appropriated, either through the capital bill, which has been the case for integrated eligibility, or we've funded some of the DMV related modules through the T fund.
Yeah, yes.
But you know that, Senator Westman.
I know, but I got the seeding of the money. I get the fund and how you going to appropriate the money out of the fund. But on an ongoing basis, the only way you can keep this alive is charge off to all the other departments in state government somehow.
Well, we don't know what his little list of options might be, Senator
Yeah,
Westman. Maybe
Richie
there's
wants
others.
you-
But ultimately, that's where it's got to come from.
No, break open tickets.
Richie wants the answer before the governor gets it.
How about,
Well,
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care how many options you take. You're going to have to bill off to departments, which ultimately means that unless you're the transportation agency or that, it's going to come from the general fund through the back door.
well, and of course, then the other, depending on the nature of the project, for example, with integrated eligibility, then you've got federal funds that can be
Yeah, that-
available.
we
And
like
so
federal
it can
funds.
be a real blend here. And we
Right.
continue to hope that the federal government, considering the state of so many unemployment systems around the country, would provide some money to help modernize that system as well.
Senator Westman, maybe I can help give you a visualization of this. Maybe not. I'm not on the sub team. Kate is on the sub team for ADS. It's made up of Department of Tax, AOA, Kristen Klauser, Kate Slocum, BGS is procurement, Deb Demore, and I'm missing someone, but it's made up a number of people, and I'll use break open tickets, like you said. One of the options may be a percentage of the revenues from break open tickets would get distributed to an IT fund, right? And
Really?
so the way I explain it to people, or the way I think about it, is a lot like the Clean Water Fund, and where we
Okay.
took a bunch of different revenue sources to build a pot of money to establish the Clean Water Fund and to pay for it over time. That's
you're
the way
not- You're not serious about the break open tickets.
I don't believe so. As I said, I'm not on that. I'm not on that committee. I can't imagine that that's the case, but without having seen the list yet, I was just using someone's example that they brought up of break open tickets.
Well, that part of the reason I asked that question is because if you do that, because what the chair just brought up is if you're in a lot of the human services agency, where you have IT projects like that, you can bill off. If it's a Medicaid program, you can bill off to the feds and
Right.
get. So I wouldn't want to miss out doing that.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We won't let that happen as we build the budgets.
That's
I
right.
understand that, and
Yeah.
I just want to say that.
Yep, I hear your concern. And so when you look at this list, at the bottom is integrated eligibility. That 9.5 is just our match number. And the reason integrated eligibility is in this list, or one of the reasons, was because it was in the capital bill where we were bonding for this money. The governor does not like to bond for IT projects. I
Yeah,
think
but look,
that's,
that's for 20 years. Access is older than my son, and he's 38. So I would say, see, huh? I would say you got a good long-term capital investment there. But it's like anything, it needs probably needs a little attention.
Well, the DMV system is older than your son too, and I think 40 is being generous, because I think it's older tto that.
Well, I'm just looking at our time. We're at 3:09, and we have to have someone else at 3:30, and that assumes we don't have a break, but we were so late starting. So I'm going to have us move on here.
okay.
Obviously, this is an initiative, and we'll give it a lot more attention than what your run through today would provide.
Okay. And the only other thing that I have today for all of you is to let you know what some of your investment has done historically. You all have been very generous about funding additional cybersecurity money. I can recall one particular time this past year where we had a very, very serious issue starting first thing in the morning on a Monday or a Tuesday, whatever the day was, and I got a call, And the monitoring software that we were able to buy through money that all of you had given us, including the Norwich contract where they were monitoring, gave us a quick heads up immediately that there was something going on. From there, additional software that we had for our endpoint protection started going off like crazy and giving us alarms all over the place that someone had started accessing desktop computers and were able to start to move across our network. We were able to shut them down almost immediately, shut those machines down, wipe them out, clean them, and backtrace exactly how they got in and fix it. If we had not had that software, if we had not made those investments, we would have been, without a doubt, in worse of a case than UVM was, UVMMC, and probably in the same position that the city of Baltimore was. Millions and millions of dollars and lots of downtime during a pandemic. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. A lot of times you don't hear about what cybersecurity investments, what the outcomes of them are, but that's a real life example of a good story where we were able to stop something right at the gate without it going any further due to the money that you guys gave us. So thank you.
Okay,
How
Yes,
much did we put into that, John? I don't remember. You
We-
know,
well, we've done different series. I remember talking to the secretary, was off, and it was some software that you wanted to acquire, and the Senate restored the requested amount for the procurement. Then we've got the agreement with Norwich University, so that it's been done in series of investments over time. Sometimes it's software, sometimes it's actually getting additional detection resources like the Norwich group. But I don't know, maybe you've got some sense of that in total, John. I don't know.
Well, I don't have the number in front of me, but I can tell you, when ADS was created, we went from below 1% of our budget that was dedicated to cybersecurity to just about 5% of our budget, which is higher than most states. We track it across the United States and what states spend. Most states are in between 2 and 3% right now, and we're getting closer to 5%. So, comparatively speaking, in to other states, we're doing very well from a what we spend perspective. We still have a long ways to go as far as some of the things that we can do and should do. But each year, we're picking off some of those things and putting ourselves in a better position as we mature.
But what we spent and what we saved by not being attacked and hijacked, I mean, the difference is so far between. It was a heck of a good investment.
Yep.
Yeah, except there's some very sophisticated people out there, that's for sure. Look at the hack on the federal government, and they don't even have a sense of how far-reaching that really is. So,
and just for awareness, we were using that product that the federal government had troubles with. We were on the phone immediately with not only Homeland Security and FBI and everyone else, but we shut the system down. We took the steps necessary to backtrace where we were, what was installed, when. Look through our
Solar
logs.
Winds? Is that?
Yeah. And we still haven't turned the system back on because we're not comfortable yet. But again, these, as the chair said, these attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, and it's hard to keep up.
Okay, other questions of the secretary at this point? We'll let you get back to your work, and appreciate your patience and the delay in our getting to you today with your testimony. So thank you. Now we have one more scheduled testimony Chrissy, I can't see you. It's so hard. Is that at 3:30?
Yes, we have Dan Riley and Jody from Efficiency Vermont coming in at 3:30.
So we have about 15 minutes. We haven't really had a break since we went on the floor at 1. So what I'm going to suggest is we just break until come back at 3:30 and take that testimony, and then we'll move on from there.